I'm now back from Download Festival 2023, and I thought I'd take a moment to recap the live sets that I got to see and some of the best bands from the festival, and also the festival overall and how it kind of went. So this was my 11th Download Festival. It is my very favorite festival in the world. It has all of the bands I like. The kind of alternative rock sort of Venn diagram fits neatly in my music taste for the most part. And I find it quite easy to get between the stages, so you can see a lot of bands if you really want to, if you have the energy. And I think generally it's a pretty well-run festival. So to begin with, overall, it was hot as balls this year, which is quite rare for Download. It tends to rain. So that was a very pleasant change from the norm, but actually it did mean that by the time Sunday afternoon rolled around, I was pretty hot and bothered and ended up resting under some shade instead of seeing some bands otherwise I would have normally seen because my body was just cracking. But it was still a great festival overall. For the most part, the weather wasn't too much of a problem. The bands were so good, it didn't really matter. I've got a young family, so I didn't get there from the Wednesday as I would normally do at Download. This time I got there from the Thursday for all of the live days. Normally it's a 3-day festival, but this was the 20-year anniversary of Download, so there were 4 fucking days of live music, which was a lot. And normally by the 3rd day, I'm exhausted. We did another day after that. So starting with the Thursday, the first band I saw was Mammoth WVH, who's the son of Van Halen, according to Spotify bio. And it was really, really impressive. The man has a fantastic voice. All the musicians were phenomenal, and the songs had good vibes. It was a lovely way to start. I was fairly far back on the main stage, just kind of taking in the vibe and getting ready for a weekend of live music. And it was really, really wonderful. Mammoth WVH, highly recommend. I left Mammoth after a bit to see Mimi Barks, who was on the Dogtooth stage, and the sound on that stage was not the best for most of the weekend. Vocals didn't really carry across the very bassy kind of drums that were going on. It was mostly backing track for her set, so it was hard for her voice to kind of stand out amongst that. And it was a shame, because I liked the sound of her music on Spotify, but live it just didn't quite deliver. Probably just because of the sound situation on that stage. Wasn't necessarily her fault, but that one didn't really slap. And the same problem kind of lasted afterwards on the Dogtooth stage for Caskets, who I was really looking forward to seeing. And again, the sound just wasn't that great at that stage. Now, fair enough, I was towards the back of the stage, but normally sound there is pretty good because you're right in front of the sound desk. The engineer that's mixing it is hearing it and making sure that the sound is right for them, and therefore that's usually really good sound. It just didn't really come across as strongly as they would have probably in their own concert somewhere else. So that was kind of disappointing. I ended up watching a little bit of Jinjer after, midway through Caskets, and they were really impressive. The sound was great. The main stage on the Apex stage was pretty decent for the most part all weekend, actually. There were a couple times when the sound wasn't really that great, but for the most part, pretty decent. And Jinjer sounded great, very impressive vocalist. And yeah, the musicians there were amazing. It's not music that I tend to listen to, it's very proggy for me, but it was very impressive. I enjoyed it, and it seemed like the crowd really liked that as well. So well done to Jinjer. But I didn't see all of Jinjer because I wanted to see 100 Reasons as a kind of throwback to my youth. They were on the second stage, and the sound there was great. And they did a good job. There's no backing track. I was all kind of loosey-goosey, but they did well. It was a very raw overall kind of sound of those guys playing their songs. And it went down really well. I enjoyed they played a couple of new songs, which I thought went really well as well. And they were great. I really enjoyed 100 Reasons. It was, good vibes, good nostalgia, and it was solid. It wasn't phenomenal, not one of the best sets of the weekend, but it was really great, and I enjoyed it for what it was. After 100 Reasons was Puscifer, which features the singer from Tool, Maynard James Keenan, and some other musicians there, whose names I'm afraid I don't know. They were amazing. That was my one must-see of Thursday, and I thought they were fantastic. And I don't even know all their songs. I know like 2 of their songs, but they put on a really interesting stage show. They had some like aliens coming on stage. There was a whole like narrative to it. They were sort of surveying, researching humans whilst also playing these songs. They had kind of all kinds of contraptions for their microphones. It was silly. It was really silly and really fun, and the musicianship was fantastic. The vocals were phenomenal. Like Maynard and Karina Round was the other female singer for that one. Really great harmonies, very well controlled. They weren't overdoing it. They were plenty of punch, but also theatrical in the performance as well. Puscifer were amazing and the best band of the day for me I think. Yeah, that was fucking amazing. I then headed over to the Avalanche stage afterwards to check out State Champs. Big fan of a lot of their kind of pop-punk music, and the sound of the Avalanche stage was pretty decent for the most part, actually. A couple of places it didn't really work, but sometimes it was fantastic. And the sound for State Champs was really good. I thought they did a great job. Better than the last time I saw them at Download Festival. They seemed a bit more relaxed in themselves and just delivered a great show, and really enjoyed a lot of that. I didn't see the whole set. I left about halfway through because I wanted to check out Perturbator, because I'd never seen them before live. I'm always interested in that, and it was interesting. It was just one dude on like keys and guitars doing the odd vocal bits and pieces, and like a guy on an electronic drum kit, as far as I could tell from my vantage point. And it was fun. It was good. The sound at the Dogtooth stage wasn't that great, so it had trouble kind of hitting. But it was kind of fun. I don't know, it wasn't as good a live performance as I maybe otherwise would hope for. It's very technically complex stuff that they're playing, so there wasn't a whole, other than now and then the keyboard guy would do some windmilling, which was quite fun. They had a big lighting rig behind them that was doing some interesting, LED displays in a kind of star-shaped design. It was nice. I enjoyed it. It didn't like rock my world, but it was good overall. I'm glad I got to see it. I wouldn't be in a hurry to go see one of their own gigs, unless, it's maybe in more of a club vibe. I think it might work better. But so yeah, for kind of a live festival, it wasn't really my thing. But it seemed like everyone else that was there kind of really enjoyed it. So Perturbator were pretty solid, I'd say. And the headliner on Thursday was Metallica. I respect the fuck out of Metallica, and there's a few of their songs I really love, and I think they're great. I haven't listened to their whole back catalogue. I've seen them before a couple of times at Reading and Leeds festivals, and Download, I think. And they have been good. I think they did a fine job of performing their music for the most part. I think it's starting to feel a little bit dated, the sort of 7 to 8 minutes long songs. They don't really develop. It's more like repetitions of verses. Metallica fans are gonna hate me for that. But it's just kind of, I think metal has progressed so much in that time since they kind of started, and it's probably just my own taste, right? But I don't need an 8-minute song where it's kind of the same riffs repeated or long kind of meandering guitar solos and things. That's just my taste though. It wasn't bad, except for, I will say, Lars Ulrich, the drummer, his drumming was not good. I would say he seems like the most successful drummer in the world who does not have natural rhythm. His timing was all over the shop. Like, he rushed 90% of his fills, and it was just awkward and kind of janky. It was sort of, as a drummer myself, that was kind of painful to listen to. I stayed and watched about 40 minutes of it, and it just, yeah, if the drummer is not keeping to time very effectively, often, I find it hard to enjoy the show. Which is a shame. But it was always nice to see Metallica. It's very cool. They're still playing live. They are legends of the metal scene. So it was a very appropriate headliner. I struggled to enjoy it mostly because of the sloppiness of the drums that were going on there. And I think modern metal has massively developed and improved the genre to a point where high level musicianship and creativity of songwriting and the rest, and performance and show and the development of live shows and the rest has moved on so much that Metallica just aren't really at the level that other bands I've enjoyed are. Even earlier bands on the stage had more of a kind of exciting kind of vibe to them, and I struggled to really enjoy Metallica that much. So I ended up going back to our campsite and listening to it. It was really, really fucking loud, so we could hear it very clearly from the campsite. So yeah, I went to the campsite and enjoyed the rest of that from a distance. But much respect to Metallica. It just didn't really hit for me. My Friday started with Redhook on the Avalanche stage. They're an Australian kind of pop-punk band, and I thought they were fantastic. I was not expecting them to be as good as they were. Really, really great. The vocalist was really charismatic, did a great job as well delivering. The sound was pretty good overall. They had good energy, there's nice harmonies to it. It was very tight. It was really well performed, and very human and easy to enjoy. I thought Redhook did a fantastic job. Really, really enjoyed them. I was hoping to catch the end of Nova Twins after Redhook, but when I got there, they basically went, "Thanks very much, goodbye." So I missed their set, unfortunately. But I've heard they did a great job, but I can't verify that. Then on the main stage, I checked out Hot Milk, pop punk, good, kind of fun, upbeat songwriting, and I've seen them before at Download Festival on the Avalanche stage, and they were great. They're very polished, well rehearsed kind of band, and I think they did a fine job. They've got some good songs, there's good energy. The female vocalist I thought was the star of the show. fantastic voice, really good energy, great performance, was running all over the stage and engaging well with the audience, and it was, yeah, really strong show from Hot Milk. Really, really enjoyed them. After that, it was Neck Deep on the main stage for me, and they were great. You know, I listen to Neck Deep occasionally as a big pop punk fan. They have some wonderful songs, great moments, and they were great live. Really, really solid. Vocals did a great job, good voice there, plenty of energy. They were relaxed and confident and came across, they were having a good time, and they did a great job. A really good set list, I thought. Plenty of songs that I knew and loved, and yeah, top drawer, really good job from Neck Deep. Now, I mentioned earlier I've got a young family, so I ended up leaving the festival after that for a couple of hours in order to put my children to bed, because they were staying nearby and they were a bit tricky. I think our youngest was teething or something. So I missed the next couple of bands, unfortunately, but by the time I got back, it was just ready for Architects on the main stage. And I was really looking forward to seeing Architects. They can be phenomenal, you know, and I was excited to see them on the main stage at Download because I'd never seen them play that stage before. I thought the set list was decent, you know, they played a couple of the really good songs from their latest album, but they also peppered in some old classics and things, and it was, yeah, so the set list was nice. I think the performances of the musicians were really good. They were really solid. Unfortunately for me, the sound engineering of them made it trickier to enjoy than other performances of theirs that I have in the past. It was very bass heavy, and the vocals, especially the scream vocals from Sam Carter, struggled to cut through the sound, which, you know, it was tricky because the emotional power of his vocals is really part of the appeal of Architects. So it was hard to enjoy them as much as I know they have been in the past, which was a bit of a shame. And yeah, so and you know, I think they did a great performance overall, but in terms of the technicality of performing, but there was something just kind of missing from it. And I wonder if the sound interfered with the overall punch of the band's performance sonically, and maybe that was the effect, but I don't know. I struggled to kind of connect with that performance as a whole. I thought it was pretty solid, but not at the level that I've seen them be before, or the level I was hoping for from the main stage at Download. It's a bit of a shame there. After them was Bring Me the Horizon, who put on the best set of the weekend, certainly, and probably the best live show I've ever seen of any band. And I know that's a big thing to say, but that was phenomenal what they did. Now, I've seen them several times. I think that was like the 7th time I've seen them. I've seen them over the years, from kind of small club venue all the way to this, and it was unbelievable what they did. They put on a whole show with amazing visualizations and the screens in the background. They had this 3-headed dragon dog thing that breathed fire, and when it did on the screen, there was also pyrotechnics with fireballs flying as well. It was amazing. They had a whole interesting, quite funny at times, through line of commentary with this concept of, like, you know, end of the world, something or else going on, which was quite fun. The set list was amazing. They played a wonderful range of their back catalogue. The only song I wasn't really super keen on is Die For You, but it's just not a big, you know, not a massive fan of that one. But it was really solid. The vocal performance by Ollie Sykes was phenomenal. The sound was damn near perfect. It was amazing. They opened with their latest song, Amen, and it was such a hard-hitting opener. To open a brand new song when you're headlining Download Festival is such a ballsy move, and they absolutely crushed it. It was really phenomenal. They also had a guest feature from Nova Twins, because they were playing on that stage earlier on, so they did that One by One song from the EP that they released during the pandemic time, and that was really great. Also, Amy Lee from Evanescence showed up to do one of their songs off Ammo, which went down a storm, and it was, yeah, just absolutely incredible. And it also goes to show just the difference between what the older school headliners of like Metallica are doing versus what kind of modern bands are trying to do when they're pushing the envelope as much as Bring Me the Horizon are. That show was completely incomparable to anything else I've ever seen, and it was unreal. Phenomenal job by Bring Me the Horizon. One of the best live shows, if not the best live show I have ever seen. On Saturday, which was probably, I think, for me, the best day of the festival, it opened with Polaris on the main stage. They absolutely crushed it. They were amazing. Really loved their set list. The performance was great, plenty of attitude, got the crowd involved, and yeah, the performance was great. Sound was pretty decent as well. There was an occasional moment when the vocalist's screams got a little bit lost in the mix, but for the most part, really great, wonderful opener on the main stage. Really impressive by Polaris. I then went to the second stage to check out Straight From The Path, and they were phenomenal, but then they always are. I mean, they're great musicians, they have plenty of attitude and character and charisma when they're on stage. Really good set list. The sound at the Opus stage was really great all weekend, and they were fucking amazing. They absolutely crushed it. After Stray, I caught the very end of the Fever 333 set on the main stage, and that looked like it was going really well. They were high energy, delivered their songs really well, and at the end, the vocalist ended up climbing up one of the massive relay towers, which was pretty cool and badass to see. Dangerous as fuck, would never recommend that, but it was very impressive. After that, the next band I saw was on the main stage, and it was Ice Nine Kills. Great performance as they did last time. The sound wasn't as good as they were previously on the second stage, but there's just something, I don't know how, but the second stage at Download Festival, the sound is always amazing, and the main stage is tricky, right? They're trying to cover a larger space of people and account for, you know, the losing some of the bass throughout all the bodies as it goes towards the back. So they have to do some shenanigans to try and get an overall good sound in as much of a wide space as possible. And that makes things tricky. But their performance was great, and each one of the backing vocalists, who are like the guitarists, could be a frontman of a band themselves. Everyone is at a really high level, professional as fuck, great performance, and really madly impressive. Worth seeing if ever an Ice Nine Kills are playing a festival, for sure. I think at this stage I was probably then cowering under some shade in the guest bar area, but then I went on to the second stage to see some of Motionless in White, and again, it sounded great. The second stage sound was amazing. They did a wonderful performance. They have great stage presence. They're chilled out. There's a bit of costuming going on, and they were, really, really great, high quality performance from Motionless in White. I was then so fucking tired. Like, this was the third day of the festival. Myself and some others went back to our campsite to put our feet up for a bit, have a couple of drinks, and relax in the shade. So I didn't see the next kind of set of bands. I went back into the festival to check out Simple Plan. And my plan was to see one or two songs of Simple Plan and then run away and see Disturbed. I saw a couple songs of Simple Plan, and they were amazing. They were phenomenal, way better than I expected. Vocals were great, the sound was great. It was the second stage, of course the sound was amazing. They opened with I Do Anything, which was a banger to open with. I thought they were great, but I always want to see Disturbed if they're playing, so I ran away from that. I went to Disturbed, and Disturbed sounded like they were doing a great job overall. The vocals were not as strong as I remember them being in the past, or a little bit pitchy in areas, but it's fucking Disturbed, they're cool as fuck. But after a couple songs, all I could think about was how good Simple Plan were. And so I left Disturbed, I went back to the second stage to watch the end of Simple Plan, because it was genuinely one of the best pop-punk band performances I've ever seen. It was so wonderful. And as I got back there, they were doing a cover of Avril Lavigne's Skater Boy, which I did not see coming. And then I think they did The Killers as well. It was great fun. And they had all the the big hits in set list. It was fantastic. Loved Simple Plan massively. I then managed to catch the end of the Disturbed set and see some other songs there that I liked, so that was cool. The next band for me was Coheed and Cambria. I've listened to a lot of them in the past. They were on the Avalanche stage, and the sound was actually phenomenal there. Maybe the best I'd heard it be all weekend. They played, a bunch of songs that I don't know, because I don't know all of their most recent albums, but they played A Favorite House Atlantic, which is one of my favorites, so that was great, and The Suffering as well. Like, it sounded like it was a great set list, and they were phenomenal. So I enjoyed a lot of Coheed and Cambria, wonderful performance, as is to be expected from them. They're a great band. The headliner again on the Saturday was Metallica, which I've talked about in the earlier section about on the Thursday. So I didn't see more of Metallica. It's not really for me. But my plan was I'd go back to the campsite and enjoy it from afar, which I did. I got to hear the songs that I did like, but from a distance without having to see the live stage show. Now I've heard, you know, and I'm sure there's some great stuff that I missed, right? These are the choices you have to make. It's a long festival. If your body's tired, you got to prioritize looking after your body, you know, instead of watching something you're kind of like half interested in. So that's what I did for Metallica on the Saturday. Sorry. Now, additional note about live bands. I did not see Gwar, but I saw the aftermath of Gwar. So Gwar played on the Dogtooth stage. They're like a costumed sort of rock band, and I don't really like their music. I don't think it's very good. However, after their set, a bunch of people were still walking around the festival in like covered in blue and maroon reddish paint. And I asked one of them, what happened here? Why is everyone covered in paint? He's like, oh, it was Gwar. So apparently during the set, one of the characters like cut off their hands or got their hands cut off, and then like blood spurted everywhere. There's a bunch of blue and red paint. Everyone was just covered in this like saturating paint. And some people had bought brand new like Download Festival or other band merchandise that was now covered in this paint. Which apparently is something that Gwar do. So if you know Gwar, you're kind of expecting that, you know, all right, I'm gonna get soaked and covered in shite. But if you were going as a curiosity, which if they clashed with no one, I'd be like, fuck it. They were one of my curious to see. I would have been absolutely miffed to be covered in gunk and not knowing that was gonna come along. But that was wild, some wild shit. Sunday, so normally I'm wrecked by this point. It's been 3 days. The festival should be over, but it's a 4th day. And opened on the main stage with Bloodywood, so that's the Indian metal band, and it was fucking awesome. Their opening song slapped so hard, and the overall vibe with the kind of Indian percussion and the rest, and the way they was just amazing. They were absolutely amazing, and it's the best I've felt about their kind of rap vocalist as well. I think live it works better than it does on the record for some reason. The way it cuts through, I think is kind of powerful, and their set was great. The crowd loved it, and it was one of the most enjoyable openers on the main stage of a festival I've seen. It was fucking great. It was a great fun show. I then went to check out Taylor Acorn over at the Avalanche stage, and it was great. The sound wasn't perfect for them, but it was decent enough. You could tell she had a great voice. Her singing is really wonderful. I'm surprised they don't have a bassist. Some bands are doing this increasingly, so sorry for all the bassists out there, but it sounds like you're mostly getting out of a job, because they'll just play a backing track and the bass comes through there. There's one guitarist, her on vocals, and a drummer. So I would have preferred to have a live bassist playing, but it was fine. And yeah, I love the set list. Songs I wanted to hear, I got to hear. And apparently it was her first time in the UK performing, but also at all, which is a bit of a surprise. But yeah, Taylor Acorn, really enjoyed that set. I caught a bit of Lorna Shore on the main stage, and it was fucking ridiculous. That band is so ludicrously, incredibly talented on their instruments and their vocals. The stuff they can produce live is ridiculously impressive. And the sound was phenomenal. The balance of the whole thing was great. I'm not into deathcore, but man, you gotta see that shit live. That was so impressive. Absolutely wild. I've never heard anything quite like that in my life produced by human beings. And it was, yeah, really quite a thing to behold. Lorna Shore were wildly impressive. I caught a little bit of Graphic Nature. The sound though is the Dogtooth stage. The sound wasn't that great, and it didn't really carry as much of a punch as I would have hoped. So I think maybe the sound kind of let them down a little bit. But they seemed like they were having good fun. Most of the band were wearing rain jackets, which is an interesting aesthetic choice. But yeah, they did fine. I saw some of Joey Valance and Brae over the Avalanche stage. So like two MCs, kind of like a Beastie Boys vibe. And they were good fun. They brought the energy, they got everyone jumping, even though it was hot as balls in that tent. So yeah, good vibe from Joey Valance and Brae. I enjoyed a lot of that. I then left them to see a bit of Hawxx on Dogtooth, and again, Dogtooth stage, the sound was just not that great. I thought, you know, the vocalists had a bit of charisma to them. They seemed to perform quite well. The musicianship was pretty decent. It just, I don't know, it didn't really hit live the way I was hoping it would. You know, maybe they need to do another 100, 200 gigs or so, and it's going to really come together. But yeah, Hawxx were okay. I caught a tiny bit of The Who, the Mongolian metal band, on the main stage, and that seemed like a good vibe. They certainly seemed like they should be there. They had the confidence, and they crushed that from, you know, their style of music, the rest. And I think they were really well received. So The Who did a good job. At that point, I was dying. As an Irishman in that kind of heat and sunshine, I was starting to get into trouble. So I went to find some shade and some cold water and some cold beer and just sat the fuck down and tried to cool down as much as possible for the next like hour and a bit. Yeah, by the fourth day in that heat, it was pretty tough. So I took a little bit of break from the live music, but my next band I saw was Prevail on the main stage, and so solid as a performance. They, performed the songs excellently. I thought it was a good set list for the songs that I knew and enjoyed. It wasn't life-changing. They did it's hard to fault the production level, audio-wise, that they put forward. The vocalists were great. In particular, the one with the kind of the curly hair, his fucking scream vocals were amazing. And yeah, it was good. I enjoyed Prevail. You know, I thought they were great. It wasn't life-changing. There's something lacking there in the connection between their music and their performance and myself. I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that a lot of the track is very kind of, there's like backing track and click track to it, so it's very sort of polished, and sometimes you'd lose a bit of translation of the live music thing there. But yeah, I don't know. Prevail were decent. I thought they did a good job. And they played Bad Things, which is a song I really wanted them to play, and it was great. Again, I was so tired and exhausted from the weekend. I'm nearly 37 years old. I'm allowed to be tired. I'm not the spring chicken I once was, going to festivals, running between different stages to see all of the bands. You gotta look after your body. If you're gonna enjoy the bands you really care about later on, like Slipknot, I wanted to make sure I was well rested for that. So I didn't see Set It Off on the Avalanche stage, which was my plan. But Avalanche stage was so fucking warm. My God. So yeah, I ended up just hanging out with my mates for a bit. And then it caught the end of Parkway Drive, lots of fire. They seemed to have a fucking great time. They looked like they absolutely smashed their set. The sound was really, really good for them. Yeah, really strong performance. Very, very impressive live act at Parkway Drive. I didn't bother going to see Electric Callboy because I just thought it's going to be absolutely packed with a sea of people, and I just couldn't stand up for very much longer. My feet were aching, my lower back was screaming at me, and I knew I wanted to enjoy Slipknot. So I went to the main stage like an hour to an hour and a half early to sit down during the changeover between Parkway Drive and Slipknot and get myself ready for that, because that was going to be the big closer of the weekend for me. And I did really enjoy it. It's not the best I've seen Slipknot. I've seen them be amazing at Download a couple times. The first 20 minutes or so, what was weird is Corey Taylor wasn't really talking to the crowd that much, which normally he does a lot. They're kind of just banging through the tracks. And there was a few songs in there I didn't really know. And I was kind of like, this is all right. But he was a little bit pitchy. Like, it wasn't his greatest vocal performance. It's like, what's going on here? But then he revealed that actually he's been fighting off some kind of a cold or illness for like a week. So that made more sense. It was hard to hit the notes because his vocals were not the same as they normally are. So that made more sense. And so it was fine for a bit, but then they started to rip through an absolute banger set list of hits, including Left Behind, which I don't know if I've ever seen them play that live. It was many, many, many years ago. They tend not to play that one. So that was an amazing moment. They played Wait and Bleed. Psychosocial they played earlier on. That was great. It was a wonderful set list, and from then on, the whole thing was massively enjoyable. Spit It Out was fucking great. Like, it was really good. Not the best I've ever seen them, and the difficulty for them was that Bring Me the Horizon's live show was on another level. So it actually even made Slipknot look like they were average, which they weren't. They're one of the best, most exciting live bands you can see, in my opinion. But it just paled in comparison to Bring Me the Horizon. It was good, but they kind of just stood there and performed. There's some visualizations were kind of cool. There were some pyrotechnics, but yeah, it just wasn't wild anymore compared to what Bring Me did. It was a bit of a shame, but it was a nice way to cap off the 4-day festival with a solid performance from Slipknot. It was very good. I always enjoyed a bit of them. It was a nice ending. So that's what I thought of all the live acts I got to see. Some really phenomenal performances, some like life-changing ones as well. Like in the Bring Me the Horizon was absolutely ridiculous. Puscifer really blew my mind as well. Yeah, it was fantastic. Straight from the path. were amazing. Polaris fucking crushed it. Always nice to see Slipknot. Yeah, plenty of great live music to enjoy and download this year, but fucking hell, man. 4 days, it's too much. My body can't do it. I just can't. So I'm looking forward to next year. It'll be back to 3 days. Now, I really enjoyed my overall experience at the festival. I've heard some horror stories coming out from other people's experiences of it. And it's going to depend on a lot of factors, right, where you're camping. I'm fortunate enough that I can afford to go for the RIP package for Download Festival, which is where we've a kind of really, really great facilities. You've got access to the guest bar. There's a massive TP bar in there, so you get some shade if you want it during the kind of sunnier times. That's really helpful, especially when it's hot and insanely sunny like it was this weekend. Or if it's pissing it down with rain, it's great to have some shelter from the TP tent bar as well. The food in there is great. There isn't really any queuing for toilets. There's not really much queuing for food or water and the rest. So if you are in need of your basic human needs, the guest bar is a lovely place to be. So it was the biggest festival they've ever done for Download, and I think they tried to take on too much capacity for what they could actually deliver. In the mornings of the Thursday, the trash bins areas were already overflowing. It's like, how the fuck has that happened so quickly? The toilets ended up being a swampy mess. There were just so many people trying to use all the facilities at the same time. It just didn't seem like there was enough. There's just never enough. But I get, it's impossible to put on a perfect festival, the right balance of all the facilities for everyone, right? It's a really difficult task. And I think the organizers did as good a job as could be reasonably expected for the most part for a lot of that. Some of the things they will, only learn as they go, like trying to cater for that number of people. They've never really done that before. Having 4 days as well, that's pretty tricky. They made their lives 33% harder. So I also heard that the campsites, which I was not a part of, got kind of oversubscribed as well in some areas. I also heard a story from someone who sat next to me at one point saying that they were one of the organizers who was trying to help folks, and there was someone who was disabled and needed to get back to their campsite. But it turns out, and they asked, well, which accessibility campsite do we need to take this person to? And the accessibility campsites overflowed. So this person was in regular camping, which you couldn't very easily get to if you're in a wheelchair. Like, that's not really acceptable. There were places on the Sunday in the bars that ran out of water, which is crazy. So that was really quite difficult for folks. I mean, some places they ran out of soda drinks as well. Soda drinks. Soft drinks, like Pepsi and stuff. So those are some serious issues if it is going to be that hot. There's some basic human needs like water that you need to have provided in massive numbers. So that was not great. One of the stages, they had some problems in the changeover. I think Dinosaur Pileup, they were really delayed. There's some moments where microphones cut out, which I think were the festival microphones. Happened a couple of times in the Avalanche stage. But that's technical issues are going to happen, right? So it wasn't a perfect festival by any means. But again, I don't know how much of it was affected by the fact that I had a nicer kind of package. I'm sure that was a factor, but I had a really good experience overall. So it's a shame to hear that there were some difficulties elsewhere. I'm going to look at some reviews and recaps on YouTube to find out more about what else happened in the other areas. Just kind of interested to know. But my experience overall was really, really positive. The only gripes about my world in the kind of RIP camping is the village, so where the kind of town center, if you will, of the main kind of camping area, where there's some stages and fun fair stuff. This outside of the arena. Last year got moved closer to the RIP area. Now RIP stands for Rest in Peace, which means you're supposed to get some rest during the night, right? There's a curfew of noise between 1 a.m. and 6 or 7 a.m. So you can have a fucking great day, but also enjoy some sleep. Since the village moved closer to RIP camping and the cooperative shop, they're blasting music all night. Pretty much. And it's so fucking loud that it makes it hard to sleep. I woke up at 10 to 3 in the morning because of the co-op, noise going on there. And that is that's tough when especially if you're saving a bunch of money to pay for, quieter camping. And then that happens, it's quite disappointing. I know it's first world problems, the rest, but they're selling a package that they're not delivering on. The whole point of it is you get some really comfortable, restful area to stay, and that noise is fucking insane. And what's really frustrating about it is they had live music in the RIP area on the Wednesday night. And they ended up having to cancel the headliner set of Nova Twins because they were running really late, right? The whole stage management seemed like it didn't go that well, and bands were playing like an hour late. But they cancelled Nova Twins set at like 11 p.m. because of noise curfew, but the co-op's rocking music until 3, 4 in the morning. How is that not a noise curfew thing? Maybe it's just a live music curfew versus a recorded, playlist thing. I don't know what the hell happened there, but it's kind of hard to accept if you're like, I've missed out on a potential amazing set from Nova Twins, but instead I've got like you blasting out Wheatus Teenage Dirtbag, which is a great song, but it's like just over some speakers in a shop that I'm hearing at fucking 3 in the morning. That doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, the staff that put on the festival, the organizer folks were wonderful. It's genuinely one of the friendliest festivals I have ever been to. Not just in the people that go to it, but also the staff. I thought they were really, really wonderful. Everyone was very kind and helpful and positive. And yeah, it was overall, I had a really great experience. The live music was amazing. I had a blast. I've got my ticket for next year. Can't wait for that. Yeah, it's an absolute onslaught of just relentless live music options for 4 days. And now I somehow have to go back to reality and do my day job again. And all I can think about is how fucking good Bring Me the Horizon were. They were phenomenal. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like YouTube to send you more videos like this in future, then do boop the subscribe button. If you're interested in some additional content from me and some early video access, I have a Patreon page for as little as £1 a month where you can help support the channel. Either way, thank you for watching, have a wonderful day, and maybe I'll see you in another video.